In this video, I want to take a look at this Craftsman 22-inch weed trimmer. Early COVID times, my buddy Mike dropped this off at the house, which I assume means it's not running. I haven't done anything to it except roll it out here for video, so this will be new for both of us. I know I've seen this thing running a couple of years ago at deer camp, and it's handy for clearing brush out there. And I think someone picked it up at a yard sale for cheap, so it was not a heavy outlay of cash. So let's get started. I'll see if let's see if this engine turns over. It's very stiff. We don't want to lubricate that. Okay, the engine's free. That's good. All right, let's take a quick look at the oil. Okay, the level's okay, and it's not too black. Probably has not run a whole lot. It's just sat up, or sat out rather. Fuel, bone dry. That's great. So let's put some non-ethanol gas in here and see if we can get it to crank. Just a sip, maybe more. Okay, so this may not be much of a video at all. Lots of smoke, but that's okay. Let's take it off choke now, and we'll just see what it does. Oh, okay, here we go. And immediately we see fuel leaking from the carburetor and or the bubble there, so that must be the problem with this. Okay, so now that every drop of gas has drained out, we can I've pulled it in the garage and we can take a look at this. Looks like these bolts are an 8mm, and there's a few of them. And this air breather cover is kind of in a weird spot. It's like you have to kind of pry it down before you can get that thing to pop out there. And you know, I don't know, the air filter's not in terrible shape, but I mean, we can replace that. I think I've got an extra one somewhere. You know, I've seen this thing sitting out in the rain for years and years at camp, so all of this has probably been wet a lot of times here. So just pull that out of the way. And what's next? I can see here that the fuel line that goes from the tank over here to the carburetor, you know, it's pliable. It's not in terrible shape. It doesn't look like it's leaking right there. I think our culprit's going to be this right here. It looks like there's a hole right there in the middle of the primer bulb. And you know, this happens, those things deteriorate, and we just need to replace that thing. And on this particular model, I don't know if you can tell or not, but the this primer bulb is a separate unit altogether from the carburetor. So I think it's just a matter of us removing this outer shield here, removing this, and probably hooking up the tubes that go between those. And 3 more 8mm bolts. Okay. Okay, so this is kind of strange, and maybe I've never seen this before, but the looks like the primer bulb here is integrated into this piece. There's no tubes that go anywhere except for, I can't really tell what's going on there. But the here's our intake gasket. It looks pretty shot. Looks like the rest of the intake right here is looks like the rest of the intake here is pretty crusty as well. I'm wondering if it's possible, if the float in here is stuck, then maybe it's dumping all that gas, and we've got two problems. It's not just the primer bulb being having a hole in it, but there's also a stuck float. So we'll pull off the carb and we'll take a look at that. Just get our channel locks on that hose clamp. And pull that off. Uh-oh, look out. Get up. Okay, now you got to find something to put that gas in. That's not cool. Crisis averted. And you may be wondering about this tube right here and why there's no hose clip or hose clamp on it. And the reason for that is that looks like it's some sort of a crankcase ventilation. There's no actual fuel that flows through that. That's just air that kind of gives the, as the crankcase, as the piston is going up and down, the crankcase builds up pressure, and it needs to release that and to normalize the pressure in there. It runs that air through the airbox, which is a good design. Now we have a couple of 10mm bolts. All right. Okay, and we want to remember our linkage here and see if we can pull that out. There we go. Right there. Okay, so easy enough. That thing will just slip right back in that hook when we're done, and no harm, no foul. There we go. I'd like to point out that this is a little odd to me that there's no gasket between this and this at all. So we'll have to remedy that as well. Now that the carb's off, let's take a look at the bottom. Pull off the float bowl with an 11mm socket. Perfect. Okay, and here's the bowl. You can see that there's just a little bit of trash in there. And so let me dump this out and get a new piece of paper here. Okay, so aside from being, rather dirty, if you look at the motion of this float, it took me the first time that I did this. It didn't want to go up and down. I'm having to fight it to go up and down, and so what I think is happening is it was stuck in the down position, and as the float fills up with fuel, it wasn't enough. It wasn't loose enough to turn it off, which is that's what happens, is it kind of cuts the flow whenever you do this. So it's always giving you, maximum flow of fuel. So I think if we go through the process of pulling this thing apart and putting a new carb kit in there, it should be good to go. And I think I'll see what they run. Usually you can get the float and the needle jets and all that stuff together, and it's not too bad. And then you can just have the next few years of knowing that you don't have to worry with this anymore. I want you to see something here too, because I don't know what this is. It looks like sawdust. You know, to get here, it would have had to come through that fuel somehow, fuel line, or if there was maybe cracks in the breather or the gasket, the intake gasket. I guess, you know, some things could have it could have sucked some of this stuff into the carburetor, but that's very interesting. Using the model number on the data tag here, we can get on eBay and start looking for parts. Okay, so while I wasn't able to find anything on eBay using the model number here, I was able to just search for Briggs 6.75 horsepower carburetor kit, and actually got this awesome deal on is this Amazon or eBay? Anyway, for $17.99, I got a carburetor, an air filter, a new spark plug, a fuel filter, and then the required gaskets. So that's just a good deal. 4 days later, the box is here, and we've got our new air filter, which appears to match the old one. And in matching the new one up with the old one, I would say that's a pretty direct match there. So I think we're good to go. We're good to replace all this stuff. Here is the, let's see what else here. There is our primer bulb, and let's see here, spark plug. Looks like the old one is a RJ19LM. This one is some other sort of Chinese variation, maybe. Who is this? Anyway, so I may put just another Champion RJ19LM in there and just throw this one in a spare parts box. So anyway, still good to get all that stuff for 18 bucks. With the, I mean, you know, sometimes you would not even expect to get just the carburetor repair kit. So it's so much nicer when you don't even have to mess with getting your hands dirty with carb cleaner or anything like that. You can just pop in a whole new unit. And yeah, so let's get that going. I did notice in the package that there is a gasket just like this, and that's what I was missing earlier. I couldn't figure out why there was not a gasket, but it's that little O-ring right here, and that fits in this little channel here. So we'll go ahead and remove this and get that new one on there. And let's ease our throttle cable in here. And after further inspection, it looks like the new primer bulb has a hole in it as well. So let's maybe that's the way it's designed. So let's leave the other one alone and just see if we can make it work like this. And I feel somewhat compelled to clean some of this gunk off of the back of this intake plate before we remount it. Just to make sure none of that stuff ends up in the intake. And once we do this, we can put a new intake gasket on there. There we go. And the gasket has these little handy holes that fit right into those little prongs there and line it up for you. Then that'll hold that in position while we mount it. All right, now we'll just take the choke cable, position it down in there, roll around, and if you'll recall, we had this ventilation tube that we'll just attach to the back of that plate like so. And there we go. Alright, and your 3 longer screws are going to go right in here. Here. and here. Make sure you're connected here in the back, like so. All right. And this green thing that was inside the air box with the air filter, this is starting to, feels like it's just deteriorating. I'm going to omit this thing altogether and just run it without this. All right, we're going to lay our cover down like this, drop our filter in like so. These 3 tabs right here match up like that. Lift up right there and screw that in. All right, now it's time to put the top cover back on. So this right here, and we've got a screw goes in from the top here, and another one right over here. Okay, so I filled the trimmer with more gas, and it doesn't appear to be leaking from the usual spot down there, so let's try to prime it a few times and start it. Okay, so we have quite a bit of smoke coming out here. Maybe we just need an oil change. Maybe there's some stuff that's kind of gotten itself lodged up in there. But we're probably not in the clear just yet. Okay, I have a theory on this. You can see the smoke coming out of the exhaust right there. I think, as is often the case on motors that have the float stuck, I think they've been pouring too much fuel into the cylinder for a long time, and the fuel, the cylinder can't burn it all, and so it ends up in the exhaust. So to test this theory, considering, let's assume that we have everything, the correct flow now with the new carburetor, I think what we're going to do is just let this thing run for about 5-10 minutes and see if some of that excess fuel that may have been in the exhaust just burns off. Okay, I'm going to crank it, and then we'll put it on time lapse for about 5 minutes and see if you can see the amount of smoke decrease. I don't know if you can tell, but the smoke has gone away almost entirely. I've got it in the low range on the RPMs. I think I still may end up changing the oil and changing that spark plug, but I'm going to go ahead and count this one a success. For what it is, it's going to sit probably in the rain at deer camp and be abused. So, $18 to get another season out of this, I think is well worth it. So, if you like the video, please push that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. We've got a lot of videos on the channel related to home and auto repairs, maintenance. I'm always trying to save a buck, so go ahead and subscribe, and hope to see you down the road.